And we're live! Hello and welcome to the Snappy-Tech podcast, episode number 11. Now, you're probably wondering, guys, isn't this supposed to be episode number 12? Like, it was 11 last week, wasn't it? But the observant amongst you will have noticed there wasn't an episode last week because I was busy dying. So instead, we have 11 this week with our guest Paul, and I'm back in England. But first, Paul, how are you? Oh, damn it, I just hit my microphone. How are you doing?
I am absolutely shattered for no known reason today. So if I get very quiet and very monotonous, then you all know why.
Monotonous is just your voice in general, isn't it?
Yes, but I change it a tiny bit. Maybe only dogs could tell the change, but
To be fair,
now even dogs are
monotonous
going to get
is
bored.
to be fair, monotonous is better than whatever the hell my voice does at the end of sentences sometimes, where it just goes really high pitch. Like every now and again, I'll just be like, "Oh my god!" just at the end of sentences, really randomly. I don't even know why. It just happens, and then I hear myself do it, and I'm like, "Oh my god, George, you idiot!" Anyway, we have tech news to talk about, and we have to make this show twice as good as it would have been otherwise. A, because we may or may not have started about 15 minutes late, and B, because we didn't have a show last week because I was busy dying. Should we quickly cover why I was dying? Should we do that real quick?
Yeah, let's go to story time with George.
Let's do that. But before we do that, this show has been brought to you by the Snappy-Tech Facebook page because I'm currently posting to it. So I'm going to keep talking so I can do this really, really quickly. Look at how slick I am. Isn't
For a,
this
s-
great?
for a second,
Um,
I had a panic attack, thinking that you might segue into me having a sponsor for this episode, which I just completely. I remembered like yesterday that I hadn't thought of one. I was like, you know what, I really
oh, you
can't be asked to
mentioned that
think
as
of
well.
one.
You did mention, actually, that you had thought of a sponsor. I should have segued into that instead.
I,
Oh, well.
I have thought of it for this week, but I didn't actually get any one worth it. It was all like really crap. So I certainly didn't have a time to make the marker thing, like the tag.
Right, so everything has been shared out, which means I'm all yours, audience. Actually, I'm not all yours, because I also have to give at least some attention to Paul, considering he's the one I'm conversing with. And then there's also the live chat. So if you're paying attention, if you're here, make sure to say hi because we can have a conversation, and conversations are fun. So the reason we didn't have an episode last week, I was I was doing quite well. Sunday was the last full day of my holiday. The day before, we'd decided to go to a restaurant and have some food, and the food was all right. And then we discovered that the Georgia were playing Ireland in a football match, so we went to watch that. And so I go to this football match, and I'm like, oh, I'm feeling a bit bloated. I'm not feeling 100%, right? Like something here's a bit off. But you know what? Whatever. We watch the football. I drink some Coke, which was questionable at best, to be completely honest. But I drank it anyway because I was thirsty, and that's what you do. Um, we then went to a club, and when we got to the club, like within 10 minutes of me getting there, I was like, I am not well enough to be here right now. So I decided to go home. My parents and sister stayed at the club until about 2 a.m., which I remember because they got home at 2 a.m., and I was like, guys, I feel like I'm dying. And then I went, someone quick, grab me a bucket. So they grabbed me a bucket, and then I threw up into it like 8 times that evening. It wasn't fun, trust me. Um, so I stopped throwing up at like 4 a.m., at which point I'm informed my dad started throwing up because he wasn't well either. Um, so up until about 4 hours before our flight, we weren't 100% sure whether or not we'd be back in the UK this week, because it was fully possible that me and my dad just wouldn't be allowed to fly, and we'd have to call up our insurance and extend our holiday. However, I'm here now, and you couldn't even tell that I was dying a week ago, which to some is a disappointment, I'm sure. But to everyone else, it means you get a Snappy-Tech podcast. Whew, that was one hell of a. I didn't consider that I'd be doing an opening story. So now we're all caught up in the world of George. Let's catch up in the world of tech. Um, we're going to start with a topic that isn't in the title of this podcast episode, because it's a. Well, we're starting with it for two reasons. First of all, it's not in the title because of a reason, but it's last week's news. So I didn't put it in the title because it's a week old, and I wanted the title to contain this week's news. However, it is, to me at least, such a big piece of news that I couldn't help but cover it. Right, I just had to, and that news is of course the
Wait,
beauty that is the LG V30.
yeah, I was about to say, is it the one on the spreadsheet that has the heart eyes next to it?
Yeah, if you if you go to the show notes, you'll see they're not complete because I have been extremely busy this week, and unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to finish off the show notes. The big ones, the ones that I felt needed show notes are show noted, so you can go check those out. Let me do some quick cleaning up, actually.
You know how the bottom one, the URL, is a YouTube video? You should just
Yeah.
get some random comments from the YouTube video and post it there. I
Oh
think that's
yeah, maybe.
that's always a good idea.
Yeah. You see, actually, whilst researching that article, not article, that last piece of news, which we'll come back to. Actually, we'll come back to it in a minute. We'll talk about it then. Let's talk about the LG V30, which
Yes.
is a gorgeous, gorgeous phone. If you haven't seen it, it is beautiful on so many levels. Like I am just looking at it makes me jealous. Like it is like there are very few phones where I look at it and I'm like, I really want that phone. Right? I feel like the Pixel kind of managed it, but unfortunately the fact that it was so plain looking, I guess, kind of killed that for me. Let me switch to, there we are. So this is what it looks like. So anyone watching the podcast can currently see my screen. I just Google image searched LG V30. So if you want to find the pics yourself, you can. But it is a gorgeous phone which shoots videos in log format, which that alone is enough to sell me on that phone, to be honest. It has a headphone jack, which is always good. But I want to know what you think, Paul. What's your opinion on the LG V30?
Well, for those that don't know, I used to have an LG G2. That was the first flagship phone LG brought out that was actually a flagship phone. Of that year, the only phone that actually beat it that year on the spec sheet was, I think it was the Z1, if I remember rightly, from Sony.
Right.
And that is still my favorite phone. So when I see LG sort of release phones, I'm usually pretty interested. And I think LG, as you say, beautiful phone. I really like the looks, but I like the specs just as much. And I think there's a couple of things they've skimped on. I'd say I say it with quotation marks because 4 gig of RAM, is that really skimping? Do you need the extra 2 gig at the moment?
Yeah, and to be fair, that is the same amount as the S8, so it's not
Yeah,
exactly a small amount of RAM.
exactly. 3300 milliamp hours. If they skipped on it, they've got wireless charging now, so it kind of makes up for it. But honestly, I said to George earlier on, to people watching or listening, I said to George earlier on, there's LG is one of the companies that I would happily live with just their phones for the rest of my life, presuming they carry on sort of at their current level.
Yeah,
Which of course that is highly
unlikely.
questionable whether they would. But I think between their V series phones and their G series phones, I could easily find a phone for years to come. And I think this has carried on with their great quality phones. That LG's an underdog in this, I think, in the phone industry. You
Yeah,
automatically, Samsung, iPhone, you automatically think phone. Oh, sorry, Samsung and Apple, you automatically think phones with generally. Um, and Sony, of course, were quite a big name there. Yeah. But they are, when you think of those companies, you do think phones. LG, when you think of them, you think great TVs, great monitors, and at great prices. But you never think of mobile phones, and they carry on with their sort of great quality at not pocket breaking prices. Sometimes with their
yeah.
phones.
I think they're relatively cheap, right? They're not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. We don't have a
Mm.
price yet for the LG V30, but it is expected to be around the price of a S8
Yeah.
Plus ish, in that price range, right? The £600, £700 price range. But even then, right, these come bundled with Bang & Olufsen speakers, headphones, which apparently sound amazing. It has a quad DAC because believe it or not, it also has a headphone jack. Hey. So that's also great, and it's got a bunch of stuff that the other flagships don't.
Yeah.
And it costs the same price, or maybe even less if you compare it to the Note, for example.
Yeah, and I think when for people that don't know, the spreadsheet that we have, spreadsheets that we have with all of the topics on, George always puts a URL next to them. The one for this one's The Verge, and something that both annoyed me and I didn't really mind too much is they were constantly comparing it to the S8, not the OnePlus 5 or the Note 8 or anything. It was always the S8. There was a couple of references to Pixel 2 and saying if the Pixel 2 XL has these certain features that the V30 has, then it's going to be a hard one. But if they don't, then V30 is definitely going to be the phone to go for. But I think that they're definitely comparing this way too much to the S8, and I think on a lot of them they wins.
I hate to be the one who defends The Verge. Sorry, that's just a sentence I really wanted to say. I hate to be the person defending The Verge. Which I just want to point out, it's not that I hate you, it's just that I find that your articles tend to lean a bit too much towards Apple for my liking. But you know what? You do you. Yeah, just a teeny tiny bit. But to be fair, I think the reason they're comparing it to the S8 is because a lot of consumers, I know that, you and I don't, but a lot of consumers see Android as the Samsung flagship, right?
Yeah.
They, if you were to go to someone in the streets and go, name an Android phone, they'd probably go, Samsung. And that might be it, right?
Yeah,
and I think it's more that comparison, and I think the Pixel line is slowly creeping into that crevice of also being a Android phone.
Even though the Pixel line is the Android phone.
Yeah.
The rest are slight modifications. Yeah, but I mean, there are parts where there's no getting around comparing it to the S8. The screen and the design on the front, you've kind of got to compare it. And considering S8 is arguably the best Android phone around, and I'd definitely say arguably very strongly there. But people would argue that that's the best Android phone to come out this year. Same with, like they'd say last year, the S7 and all that. So you are going to get those comparisons. But yeah, I think The Verge are trying to go for the mainstream understanding a bit more than the people that are actually probably even going to buy the LG. Because I mean, most people that don't know sort of some more the deeper side of the phone market probably wouldn't even think of it. They'll probably scoff at the idea of an LG phone, which is really sad, to be honest, because they make really good phones.
It is a shame because the LG G4, I want to say. Oof. Let me just do a quick Google search to see which one the G4 is. Yeah, the G4 was a gorgeous phone. It was one with the interchangeable backs that allowed you to
like. Is that not G5?
No, so the G5 was the removable bottom.
Oh yeah, that's yeah.
Oh, that's a sentence I never thought I'd say.
Oh, I just searched G4 and got the band.
But there's a band called G4.
Yeah.
But anyway, so point being, the LG G4 was the phone with the removable backs, right? And you could get the leather backs, the sort of standard plastic back, but metal. I think you could get metal as well. But I just remember looking at those and just falling in love with the design of this phone. And the G5, I'll be honest, doesn't really do it for me. Like, I don't think it really does it for anyone. It was a bit of a...
I think too out there, really.
Yeah, and it's a real shame because I like what they were trying, but it just didn't work in the end, unfortunately for them. And then the G6 is kind of... It's weird because the G6 has become the V30 Lite, I guess.
Yeah, Actually,
Is that
yeah.
what it is at this point?
Actually, I would almost say that the G6 is to the SA what the V30 would be to the Note 8, just on a slightly lesser scale.
Yeah.
Because of course the V30 is the sort of the bigger balls to the wall configuration, whereas the G6 is a slightly smaller phone, slightly more on the side of this is what you'd expect people to say is the limit for them.
Yeah,
But
and the big thing is it was missing a couple of features that they felt it needed, right? The
yeah,
fact that that it didn't have that waterproofing or the
removable back,
not even removable back, the waterproofing,
wireless charging.
the wireless charging. That's what I was going
Yeah.
to say. Yeah, and it was also missing. There was something else. Oh yeah, the specs weren't up to date. It was an 821 instead of an 835 Snapdragon, if I recall correctly. So it was using last year's chip. Let me just double check.
I think the other thing missing was a Snappy-Tech edition.
Yeah, it's missing the Snappy-Tech Blue.
Yeah. So
layout.
LG, or if anyone that knows anyone from LG, if you're watching,
I feel like
LG
I sent
really
a tweet
should
to
send
Greg
us
coming
phone.
along.
Yeah.
just
But,
shooting a quick tweet to Greg, being like, "Fam, can you hook me up?"
No, I said earlier on to George that I would be so happy if LG wanted to be like sponsors of Snappy-Tech or something, and just making sure we always have the sort of the best LG phone in our pockets and all that.
There are very few companies I'd say no to. Like, it would have to be like, I don't know, like even Huawei, I'd say yes. Samsung, I'd say yes. HTC, you know what? I probably would say, what's their latest phone? I don't even know. There was a point where I felt really bad.
I probably would say no to. Well, I mean, at this point,
there was a point I felt
but...
really, like 3 years ago, I'd say yes to HTC in a heartbeat. Oh, the U11, obviously, the one you squeeze.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's not for me. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
So I'd probably say no to HTC.
At this point, I would say just go with HTC for the next like year or so, just until we get enough subscribers. But if I had a choice between sort of any company, HTC's definitely not getting a consideration.
Yeah, no. If we got that full range,
I'm sorry.
I think for me it would either be Samsung or LG, and I think it would be for most people.
Yeah. Well, most people, they don't make you say Samsung or Apple. I mean, Apple don't pay people to have the
okay, yeah, I'll give you that one. But I meant from an Android point of view.
Yeah, I think the only other people that I can consider is Huawei Honor, because you can kind of bundle them into one company, really, because they are one company.
Yeah.
Even though they're under two different names. But those LG, Huawei Honor, Samsung, I'd say. I wouldn't even consider the OnePlus, to be honest. If you had to, if I would consider it, but it wouldn't be if it's the ideal company. I wouldn't, partially because being one of the best phones out there and at a reasonable price, I could afford to buy my own OnePlus. I couldn't afford to buy a Note 8.
Touche. Well played. You're like, I just want the most expensive. Wait, we should get sponsored by Virtue because they still exist.
Okay, do you remember Lamborghini and Aston Martin when they each made their own phones for like $5,000 or something?
Oh man, $5,000 is cheap compared to the Virtue phones, or Virtu or whatever they were called.
Well, if we're sponsored by Lamborghini, there's a chance we could have more than a phone.
True. I'll give you that one.
I doubt they're gonna give us a $100 grand.
They're just
Snappy-Tech.
Can you imagine if they skimped out on the phone though? They're like, oh yeah, you can have a Lambo, and I'm like, yeah, but can I have one of your phones? Like, I need something to call people with. I kind of smashed my phone, and they're like, yeah, nah, we don't have any spares of those. Unfortunately, they're all taken, right?
Well, yeah, if I had an actual Lamborghini though, I could drive to whatever store I wanted, and it wouldn't take too long, so I could just buy one.
Yeah, probably. Right, so we have breaking news just in. So this isn't in the topic list, and I want to cover this because this might be major. What I'm going to do right now is go over to Twitter real quick. Paul has no idea what I'm about to say. Anyone who follows me on Twitter or sort of communicates with me in general, and I think I've mentioned Evan Blass on the podcast as well before. Evan Blass, the guy who runs EvLeaks, one of
Yeah, I know what you're doing. I know what you're saying.
one of probably the best people at leaking stuff, right? Let's be real here. He is very consistent and very good at it as well. He leaked, and I completely missed this apparently because this is 2 days ago. Oops, my bad. Actually, it was originally 4 days ago. The follow-up was 2 days ago. Sorry, Evan. I just haven't been on Twitter these last 3 days. He has...
How did I know about this, but not you?
I don't know. He has tweeted out the Snapdragon 836, which is the one step up from the 835, which was thought to might be in the Pixel 2, has unfortunately been pushed back until early next year, which means that the Pixel 2 will have a 835 instead of whatever they call the 836.
An 836.
Yeah, so it says that it was perhaps under different branding, so it might be called something else. But it has been delayed from potentially being in the Pixel 2 to definitely not in the Pixel 2.
Or most likely, anyway.
Yeah, most likely.
To be honest, if I was Google right now, I would buy Snapdragon, pour $1 billion
Buy Qualcomm.
dollars into them,
can't.
and
Qualcomm.
make them.
You
Same
clearly
thing.
are not aware of the size of Qualcomm. I hate to break it to you.
Yeah, but you're not aware of the size of Google here.
No, I'll give you that one.
If Google wants something, they can have it. The only things they can't have is like Apple and Amazon.
That's probably about it. No, I'm sure they could swallow Amazon if they really wanted to.
I don't know, Amazon and I think it's at that point where Google. There was the only people that could really rival them was Microsoft and Apple. Now it's Amazon and Apple.
Right. So just looking here, I hate to break it to you, but just glancing over their Wikipedia page, Qualcomm are kind of worth $80 billion US, and I'm not sure Google have that kind. Well, not Google. It wouldn't be Google. It would be Alphabet. But I'm not sure Alphabet have that kind of cash on hand, especially in the US.
Let's face it, they can.
But it's all in their Swiss bank account, and they can't be buying Qualcomm with that. Let's be real here. Let's be real.
Well, it's Google though. Let's face it. They probably have their hands in some really deep pockets somewhere. I just imagine one day we're gonna get a story come out that Google are secretly the Rothschild family.
Google secretly own Apple all this time.
I would actually find that amazing, and I would actually never be surprised if it comes out one day that two of the world's biggest competing companies turned out to be owned by the same people and were actually a very good marketing ploy.
Well, I forgot what I was about to say. Well, the thing is, we all have to blame Microsoft for the existence of Apple, because Microsoft are the reason Apple's still alive. So if you're not aware of this, back in the mid-90s, I want to say, off the top of my head, Apple was hours away from death. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but we're going to pretend it isn't. It was, very close to dying. And what ended up happening is Microsoft put in $150 million into Apple. Not because they liked them, but because Microsoft felt they needed some form of competition. So Microsoft just poured in $150 million and just stay alive so that we have someone to beat up, basically, right? This is the equivalent of Conor McGregor paying me, to keep fighting him just so, he doesn't have to be all on his own kind of deal. Which I'd totally take a beating from McGregor for $200 million. Let's be real.
Yeah, I'd accept the 150.
You know what? I'll do it for 100.
Are we just gonna start bidding war? Just
Apparently
like,
so.
I'll do it for
Who's willing to get
90.
beat up by McGregor for less?
Oh.
Oh man. So, should we get onto the topics that are actually in the title of this video? Because it's 20 to 9 and we haven't actually done that yet.
No, I'm fine with carrying on saying how Google runs the world.
I'm going to have to divert you anyway. So I'm sorry, mate. Let's talk about what should we do first? I think I want to keep the Equifax thing till last.
Yeah, I
because
say
that is like a 40-minute topic on its own. So, let's talk SanDisk, because they released a micro SD card, and now if you haven't seen the show notes, you're probably thinking, George, who cares? It's a micro SD card, and I'm going, listener, you're asking some very intelligent questions. Go somewhere else. However, it is not any micro SD card. It is a 400 gigabyte micro SD card. That is more storage than you get in 2 iPhones. Which is important because iPhones are the only phones you can't add storage to. But it is more storage than that is in. Well, actually, to be fair, it's a lot more storage. The previous SD card would be than that's in here. Like, this thing has 16 gigabytes of storage. Actually, it might be 32. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's one of the two. But 400 gigabytes of micro SD storage at the low price. And I said this kind of sarcastically in the show notes, but I'm not quite sure how sarcastic it is. At the low price of $250. Because if you're buying 400 gigabytes of micro SD, that's actually not too shabby.
why do we need this? That's all I've got to say.
I am glad you asked. Two
Yeah,
reasons.
just to segue on to the next bullet point.
It is, yeah. That was literally a segue onto the next bullet point. You're right. It's interesting, right? Because I mean, I have my phone is currently. Let me see how much storage I have on my phone right now. Remembering that I deleted. Right. Okay. Actually, before we carry on, this is how much storage I have on my phone, whilst also taking into account that I formatted it like 2 days ago. Right? Because I format my phone once a week, apparently, without my own knowledge. I have 6 gigabytes of storage remaining, so I've used 25 on internal storage. And I have 5 gigabytes remaining on my 32 gig SD card.
Okay, so my phone, let's see. I have a 32 gigabyte phone as well. And so I've got 29 if that's usable. I'm currently using 24 out of that. So actually just under 5 gig left. All of that vlogs I could do on 400 gig.
So many vlogs. And it's not even traditional video that goes to benefit from this. Well, it is, because that's 400 hours of 1080p content, which, you know, is something you always need on your device, I guess. I don't know. Like, if you have 400 hours of HD content you need with you at all times, that is a lot of pornography. Like, calm it down a bit, to be honest. However, where this really shines is 360 video. You know, the idea of because it's 360, it needs more pixels. So if even 4K at 360 looks a bit horrible, right? It's a bit grainy. You really need 8K at 360, just because you are covering the entire field of view. And 8K, 360 degrees, 400 gigabytes disappears quite quickly. You'd be surprised. Considering, let me pull this up, right? So this is ballparking it to some extent, but 8K files are roughly 4 times the size of 4K files, right? If we, you know, 4
times the size of 1080p.
Yeah, right. So it's 4 times the number of pixels. So if I quickly go into my projects real quick, I just want to pull up. Come on. This hard drive hasn't spun up in so long, but it just took a minute to spin up because I haven't accessed the project drive on this computer in like 4 weeks. However, if I go into, let's pick a project at random, and then we look at this. So it's 4 gigabytes for, I will assume, about 6 minutes, right? So 6 minutes is 4 gigabytes. If we in 4K, if we move it up to 8K, that's 6 minutes is 16 gigabytes, right? And all of a sudden, you realize that you don't really get that much filming done, right? That's 3 gigabytes a minute. So that's not even 2 hours.
Though, actually, I was about to say that how many 360 cameras use micro SDs, but some of them do, though I'm guessing most of them use full-size SD.
Well, it also depends, because if you get something like the Essential phone, which isn't a company I'd like, just what we're on this topic, if Essential were like, we'll send you every phone we ever make, I'd probably say no. But that has a 360 camera attachment. The LG G5 had a 360 camera attachment. It seems to be a really popular thing. And apparently the new Moto mod, there's going to be a 360 Moto mod as well. That's in the works by Motorola. Well, not Motorola, Lenovo, but you know what I mean.
Same thing.
Yeah, same difference. So it's in the works, apparently. People are doing it.
Yeah, I like the idea as well, though, for the drones. You've got it there about the fact, because all of them do use micro SD on that. There is no like full-size SD cards. And the fact you can film 4K with a drone.
4K with a consumer drone, right?
Yeah.
You can get professional drones for 8K if we're going all out here. But 4K for a standard person drone.
Yeah, and the fact the memory on it will, at that point, far outweigh the battery life.
You have to remember the battery life on those things is like 12 minutes.
Yeah, so like you'll actually do several flights of it and still not fill it up. I find it's quite funny as well.
Yeah, that is.
Do we have any SanDisk contacts?
We do not. So I don't think
that is really sad, because I think it would be a really good challenge to find
something to fill it up with.
Yeah, to find something to fill it up with. Either a legitimate challenge, or more than likely let's take the piss challenge.
We'd have to we'd have to get in touch with the guy from the episode a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
Do you know who I mean?
Yeah, I know.
I don't mean Greg. I mean one of the stories. Do you not remember?
Okay.
A couple of weeks ago, we had the news story.
Yeah, I know.
I'm gonna see if
I know that one now. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So we totally need to get in touch with a guy who put 1 point. I was stalling until I could open up the show notes from a couple of weeks ago to find the exact story.
I think we should get in touch with him either way.
Yeah, Beast on O2, the Redditor who archived 1.8 petabytes of porn to Amazon's unlimited cloud storage. Get in touch with that guy. He'd probably help us fill up those SD cards. Do you know what I'd want? Actually, do you know what I want to do? And I'm sure I'm not sure what speed they're rated at actually for micro SD cards. I can't recall off the top of my head. I think it's 100 megabyte per second. It doesn't say straight on it, so I'm not 100% certain. Hang on, let me see if it's on their website. Let me show you guys the product page. So this is how you show off a 400 gigabyte micro SD card. You just go, hey, look, we have a micro SD card, and that's it. And this guy looks way too happy. So 100 megabytes per second. I would love to replace. It's probably a horrible idea. It probably wouldn't work well at all. However, I would still like to replace like hard drives and SSDs in a computer with micro SD cards. Like imagine a PC that just ran off micro SD cards.
Yeah, it's a horrible idea, but I'd love to do it.
Exactly, right?
Well, actually, I was actually going to test this out with my Surface Book. Because, I mean, I don't use a lot of storage on my laptops anyway, because I keep it pretty simple. And just have sort of programs. I don't have really much stored on there. But I was actually considering if I'd needed some extra space, you can get For the SD card reader, you can actually get a micro SD attachment that then pushes in and's flush with the side, so it's as if it's not even there.
Yeah.
So then you could buy. Before there was a 200 GB SanDisk card, or there was one 256 GB one, I think, by someone else. But they did charge over £100 for that 200 GB one. So yeah, that wasn't probably a good idea. But I was really tempted to actually test how good of an idea it would to be to have that SD card as sort of extra storage. Nothing to run programs off of, but if I wanted, say, videos, pictures, music stored on there, then try that out. But luckily I've not needed to do that because it sounds a horrible and stupid way to lose a bunch of pictures and videos and music.
Yeah, so I just checked. Hard drive read-write speed is usually about 120 megabytes per second, and the SanDisk Ultra Super Duper Thingamajiggy 400 GB is 100 megabytes per second. So it wouldn't be that much slower than a standard hard drive.
Assuming the SD card reader can actually read it that fast.
Yeah, assuming that you're not oversaturating USB, which you're not if it's a USB 3.1, for example.
Yeah, but if it's free, then.
But it would still be fun, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I think at that point you might just get a micro SD to SATA adapter, wouldn't you? Plug in instead of a hard drive. Can you get that? Wait, let's find out.
If you can, I wouldn't be surprised.
You are kidding. You can. They're like £8.
Okay. Contact SanDisk.
We need to make this happen.
One of these things as well. This needs to be a thing. We need to do this. Come on, this is. I'm deadly serious. This is actually something that I think could be very good. I think it's going to turn out terribly, but I think it'd be very fun to try.
So one end is SD card slot, and the other end is just SATA free. And apparently it's transparent to the operating system, so the OS doesn't even know it's running off an SD card. It thinks it's running off a standard hard drive.
That is very good.
This sounds like a fun video. Like, it sounds like a stupid video, but it sounds like a fun video.
You can even get SATA 3 to 4 micro
I just
SD.
Found that.
With RAID support as well.
Run 4 micro SD cards in RAID.
Come on, after this show,
we have to do
you've
this.
got to get in touch with SanDisk. Get them to send 4 out. Get RAID SD mini or micro SD cards in RAID. This has got to be done.
Oh wait, Paul.
Yes.
You can get a 10-port one for £22.
I will pay the £22 myself, so long as SanDisk give us the SD cards.
I know, right? I'm tempted to just find I'm tempted to find a bunch of really cheap SD cards and just try it and see what happens.
Yeah. No word. The only good thing about going for the 400 GB one, it's good SD card, or should be anyway. And of course, you could actually legitimately do it with a 400 GB SD card.
And if you put these in RAID 0, right, you would get roughly 10 times the speed, and that's, let's call it 5 times the speed anyway. Like, even then you're getting 500 megabytes a second, which is faster than a normal hard drive.
Yeah, and as well,
when you RAID them.
I think, it'd be a great test to do them all in RAID 0. But if you did it in RAID 10, the whole instability and losing your data downside of SD cards as a main drive, if you have in RAID 10, you could actually lose one and it wouldn't be too much of a problem.
Yeah.
And you just get extra speed as well. You really need to get a SanDisk.
This is so great. I love this so much. This is
so you heard it here first, guys. We're going to be the first people to run a SanDisk 400 gig card in RAID. We're getting 10
of them. We're getting SanDisk to send us, what is it, $2,500 worth of micro SD card.
This is where we email them and they're like, actually, this is a really good idea, but we don't want you to do it. Then they just email Linus or something and be like, Linus, do this. And, like, in a month, we'll just be like, You assholes!
That
Like I
is
was saying in the
definitely.
video. Oh, so SanDisk contacted us with this idea. And
Yeah. It was a complete. SanDisk assure us it was a completely original thought.
at that point, I would literally be straight onto Linus being like, you know how SanDisk did this? We have the emails to prove. A month ago, we emailed them asking for this.
Yeah.
And at which point, it wouldn't surprise me if Linus would be like, show me the emails. And like, if you showed him and he sort of realized they were real, he'd be like, okay, I'll actually give you a shout out. That's the kind of thing I think he'd do.
This is one hell of a hypothetical we've delved ourselves into.
Yeah.
Like,
This is great though.
what have we done here?
How long have we been talking about this?
Oh, too long. Too long.
At least 5+ minutes on the whole raid thing, and I started to SD.
Oh, that is crazy. Do we have anyone in the chat? Because if we do, I've been completely ignoring them because I've been too busy talking about. We don't. Okay,
I
cool.
don't even know if we've got a viewer.
Apparently we do.
It's probably me.
Oh, probably. But yeah, so that is SanDisk's 400GB micro SD cards that we're getting 10 of and gonna have a lot of fun with.
I never thought that was going to be a very good topic, to be honest.
Did you not? See?
Turns out it was good. It is a very good topic.
Oh man, I'm sorry, we need to get. I don't know who we get in touch with, but I am going to be tweeting someone at SanDisk tonight. Don't know who yet, but someone.
Okay, everyone watching, retweet it. Get your friends to retweet the tweet.
Make people
sure
you hate
SanDisk
to
see
retweet it because you don't have to like them for them to retweet it.
Exactly. Just get anyone that has a Twitter to retweet. Get them to retweet it. If they don't have Twitter, force them to get Twitter and retweet it. And it's all going to work out.
The more I look at this adapter card, the more I'm convinced this is a terrible but great idea all at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh man, it would just be so good.
See, the thing is as well, like it's like what was? Did you say there was a 10 one you could get?
Yeah.
What's to say that you can't get multiple of them?
Nothing,
so you could actually,
right?
you could do a hardware or software raid, and have like 40, 60. I don't think SanDisk is going to send us about 60 of those cards.
I reckon you could I feel like one of them would, two of these would be enough though, right? Because one's 10 ports, right? And 10 ports is 400 times 10, which is about 4 terabytes. So even if you only filled up like 2 or 3 of these, you now have 12 terabytes of storage.
Yeah, and even in RAID 10 it would be good. I would actually love for SanDisk to, or like them to either do it themselves or send us the money and the stuff to actually have a server running with putting all the Snappy-Tech stuff onto a server with RAID.
Oh my god, imagine putting an SD card server. Oh, do you know what would be really cool though? If you could hot swap them, because then you'd because what you'd do is if it was hot swappable, you'd take the SD card out of the camera and put it into the RAID.
We need a meet. Please say SanDisk have got a UK office.
Oh, of course they do. Right?
Okay.
I hope so.
Tomorrow morning, me and you, we're going to SanDisk office.
Just turn up to their office, like, guys, I have an idea. If they don't, I know that Seagate do. Not Seagate, Western Digital, sorry. Which is their parent company.
Okay, fair enough.
I believe it's Western Digital. SanDisk. Yeah. So SanDisk was bought by Western Digital. When was this? Early 2016. I think. May 2016. So yeah, just over a year ago. But yeah, we'll turn up to Western Digital, be like, "Sup, fam, make it happen, innit?" And then we'll walk out.
Yeah, so we've got this several grand request.
Yeah, like, trust me, it's a really good idea. all 12 of our viewers are gonna love it. Every single one.
But the thing is, the videos I do, or if you average them out, I get quite a decent amount of viewers.
Right. Oh, hang on,
So
mate. Right.
I've only presented about
3, 4, something like that.
no about 6, I'd say.
Really?
But of course, the top one is about 26k viewers. So even if you only take the views from that, I get about 4k of views video, and that's all you need to then make it go viral.
True.
And it's the
True.
type of stupid idea that would go viral.
So I'm looking here, and we have the Jake Burkett interview with Shadowhand. We have the headphones, the HBNV, the Xbox One S, the Surface Book.
And the Surface Book review.
Oh,
So
sorry.
there's 2
Yeah.
for the Surface Book, weren't there?
I can't seem to find the Surface Book review. Hasn't come up. I don't think I put your name in the Surface Book review, apparently. Because I just typed Paul and got what came up.
So that's why it's not in the top 5 yet.
Yeah, it doesn't have... One of the tags isn't Paul.
Everyone, just every now and then, they're just like, okay, has Paul done a new video? Nope, let's go.
Probably, yeah. But yeah, that headphones video has 28,000 views.
Yeah.
We are on track to hit 400 subs probably next week. Actually, no, not probably next week. Probably the week after next.
Either way, that is not too shabby.
Yeah, we're averaging about a sub a day, which is not too shabby.
I would love to have a Subway a day. If that helps.
No. Especially if you end up like what's his face. No, I can't remember his name. Jared Fogle? If that's his name, I just want to say go me. Oh, God, it is as well. It is. Go me. Jared Fogle.
Your prize then can be a segue into the Bloomberg article that we've got here.
Before we do that, can we just discuss Jared Fogle for like 2 seconds? Do you know who this guy is?
No, probably not.
This is the guy who was featured in Men's Health magazine and was the marketing manager for Subway because he lost a bunch of weight over the course of like 10 years eating just Subway. Like that's all he did. He ate just Subway for like 8 years, call it, whatever it was. Which is all well and good until last year where he got sent to prison because it turns out he was also a paedophile. Oops.
Way to go, Subway.
Yeah. That didn't end well for them. So, what were we segueing into again?
Well, we were just talking about 12 inches. So, from one person going to prison to another people bankrupting themselves through some hacking issues they've ran into.
Yeah, do you wanna lay it out? There's a lot to talk about on this one. This is one hell of a topic. You can start it off. I feel like we could have run the whole show on just this one topic.
Yeah, I think on the page you've actually got linked, there was 3 articles just on this.
It is a big deal.
For those that don't know, it's small, not too interesting or not too big, or it's a story without too much ramifications for anyone. Equifax have been hacked. The story came out, was it this week, wasn't it?
Yeah, earlier this week.
Yeah, the hack was totally this week or totally this month or totally multiple months ago, wasn't it? Was it like 2 months ago?
Yep. So it lasted. The crazy thing is that it lasted like 6 weeks as well. So it took. So it was. So to lay out the timeline, Equifax found out that it had happened about 6 weeks ago. Part of what they found was that it had been going on for 6 weeks until they realized it had happened, which isn't exactly encouraging, right? Let's be real here. If I'm getting hacked for 6 weeks and then realize, that's probably a bit too long.
Yeah, they might as well just put like some random person in charge of cybersecurity over there.
Just have a sign that reads "Hack us."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they got hacked, which if you're in the UK, like the majority of our listeners are, you might be wondering why that's such a big deal. Because you might not even have heard of Equifax, which is fair enough. Because it's not an issue for you, but it is an issue for 143 million US
Actually,
consumers who have had their social security number leaked.
well,
Um,
you say it's not an issue for us. Equifax actually do deal with a few companies in the UK. One of them, there was another couple of big companies, but I know one of them was Capital One,
yeah,
who are a big credit card company, and apparently, I think there's the numbers in sort of like over like 10, 20 million or something of UK people could be affected as well. Um, they don't know much. I mean, the Americans don't even know whether they've been affected or not because, frankly, Equifax have been useless in the matter of telling people. But they've actually, the people that see over all of this stuff in the UK have actually said to Equifax, whatever people in the UK that actually you had details of, you need to get in touch with them and tell them because most people in the UK haven't heard of them,
yeah.
and they, even if they are in the they have information in the Equifax database, they would definitely, or like it would be like 99.99% sure they didn't have any information in there. So that, yeah, there's a high chance a lot of us in the UK have actually been affected without even knowing that Equifax had dealt with any of our information. And it's only because a few companies in the UK that have some quite important information on us, like credit card and stuff like that, use Equifax to store all of their data, just like the American companies use.
Can I just point out that when I said what was the number, 143 million users,
Mm.
that might be a number that you don't take to heart because, for whatever reason. I just want to point out that is 40% of the US population.
Uh,
It's a lot of people. It is it's major. It's a major breach. And the big story for me is, and this is interesting as far as I'm concerned, is what viewers can see on screen right now, where 3 Equifax executives sold stock just before the hack was revealed. That is major shade. Like, that is very, very shady, as far as
yeah,
I'm
and
concerned.
it wasn't a slight bit of shedding either. I mean, in sort of the amount they owned, I mean the biggest percentage that any of the three sold, I think, was 13%. He was the one that sort of came out with the most money out of the three. Um, so in sort of grand scheme of things, they could have shed like half or more. Um, but is it hella shady? If they'd done it in the 6 weeks when they hadn't even figured out as a company that they'd sort of been hacked yet, fair enough. But it happened several days after the hack happened, and the company has come out and said that these executives didn't even know about it yet. And I think a hack this big, there is no way that the some company executives did not know about it.
Yeah, I was going to
In
say, do you buy that
No,
statement?
I
Because
don't buy it
I
at all.
personally don't, not even
I
remotely.
the only way they wouldn't know about it, I think even then, I think if they was on holiday or something like that, where they wasn't able to get in touch with them, I think even then though they would have at least got like a text or an email or something or a call, even if they're freaking halfway across the world. The company are
Especially
going to
if
say
you're
to them, look,
selling stock, right?
yeah,
If you're in a position where you can sell your stock, then you're probably in a position to receive emails,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, if you're in a position to be able to do that kind of stuff, then you're in a position to know what's going on when it's something that freaking important. And the thing is, I think it kind of shows as well. The company hasn't said why they didn't know about it. So I think they're sort of scrambled. Yeah, the 3 people didn't know about it. I think if they seriously didn't know about it, they would have given a reason. to actually be like, no, seriously, there is actually a legitimate reason. Don't blame us for this. I think that kind of says fortunes,
And
so to say.
yeah, and it's crazy because that's not even where it ends, right? I want to be able to say, and the worst part is the managers knew about it. That's not even the worst part. No, no, no. The worst part is this happened 6 weeks ago and we're only just finding out about it. And so Equifax thought they'd take these 6 weeks to create a tool so that you would know if you had been affected. And the tool doesn't even work. It's complete BS.
So much.
So what
It's
I'm going
so
to do here real quick is this is the tool right here.
By the way, quick side note, I was trying to remember the figure for British people that had been affected. It's feared that up to 44 million. That's out of a population of about 75 million.
Yeah.
So over half of Britons could be affected. Isn't known for sure, but let's face it, it's probably not going to be far off.
Yeah.
So
I've pulled up the tool right here. It asks for a last name and the last 6 digits of your social security number. So in the spirit of being clear and honest, I am putting Stubbington as my surname. Paul, can you do me a favor? Can you give me 3 random numbers?
let's go for a previous story inspired number, 836.
836, and I will add, let's go with 492. So that is a completely made up last 6 digits of a social security number. Stubbington, which is Paul's surname, and he clearly... this person doesn't exist, right? We just made them up. However, this made up person is not... oh, actually, no, is not impacted by this incident. They're lucky. Go
So
fake Stubbington.
So they didn't pick... just keep the same numbers, change it to Chachanitze. Or Chachanitze or
So
whatever.
what was your number?
Mine was 836.
836492. Change your surname to Chachanidze. I am not a robot, or am I? You'll never know.
They should be asking, are you even an actual person?
Yeah. And I too have apparently not been affected by this incident. However,
Yay, us.
if we quickly go over to
So how
Twitter,
amazing would it
here it is.
how amazing would it be if it turned out that no actual information had been stolen until this
Until
tool
people
was
started
put
typing
out?
their information into this form.
Yeah.
So apparently, I've just there is a Twitter. Some guy claims on Twitter that apparently if you try the last name Johnson and any 6 random numbers, it will claim that you have been affected. So we'll do exactly that. I have typed in the names Johnson as my surname, and we're now going to do 6 random digits. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 because that is the most generic of 6 digits. Hit continue, and oh my god, he's been affected. How are we going to help him? What are we going to do?
So if you have been affected by the issues we've spoken about today,
If your surname is Johnson,
please call up our paid for line.
can I just point out I have a Google Chrome extension that gives me definitions when I double click words. So if I was to double click the word so I'm on that tweet real quick, and if you're watching this, you can see this. I'm trying my best to describe it as we talk. If I double click random, it will say random, made, done, happening, or chosen without method or conscious decision. Okay. If I double click affected, it says influenced or touched by an external factor.
I'm thinking the random definition should be sort of put towards how they chose to use their cybersecurity system.
Yeah, apparently so. However, if I double click Johnson, right, apparently the definition for the word Johnson is a man's penis. So thank you, Google, for constantly giving me great definitions all the time, just constantly, just non-stop.
Yeah, for
Whenever I
like
need a
higher
word.
definitions and.
If I what happens if I go to ask it to define Equifax? No definition found. Who's surprised? I'm not. However, I'm sure if you tried that on Equifax's tool, it would find a definition and say it wasn't affected.
Wait, put in the name like Equifax and put in just a random six
Oh,
digits
yes.
from Equifax's sort of like from the story.
Oh no, that's the wrong one. That's the one I meant. So Equifax, and then you know what? Let's put in the last 6 digits of their phone number.
There's music on this page or advert or whatever.
Hang on, let me support.
Put in the 6-digit figures of how much money each of them got from their shares.
So 495191. 495191. So this is the last 6 digits of their phone number and the name Equifax. Was it affected? Yes or no, Paul? What do you think?
I think it was majorly affected by this.
According to the Equifax tool, it was not impacted.
Banks these days.
Oh, that is great.
Well,
That
I
is
think
too good.
you should try gamble and the figure he got from his shares being sold.
Right. So there's a point I was going to make here. Yeah, if you are in the US or in the UK, I guess, please act as though you are affected. Equifax are a financial services company, first and foremost. They provide credit reports. Get in touch with the 3 major credit companies in the US, which I can't remember the name of right now. Whoops. Reddit, Equifax. Hang on, let me pull up. Here it is. So I have a full.
Oh yeah, the three of the British clients that the Telegraph actually said about on their thing included BT, Capital One.
Oh, that's the name I couldn't remember.
And British Gas.
Useful. Notice how 2 of them are British.
Of the biggest
I was gonna say, notice how 2 of them have the name British in their title.
But 3 of the biggest companies in the UK.
Yeah.
For holding your information. Yeah, if you notice, a lot of companies have from Britain have the word
name
British.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to switch back to my screen real quick. There's going to be a link to this in the description. I'll put it in a minute. If you know what, do this right now, regardless of whether or not the tool states you're affected, because it is just so bad that you're better off doing this and hoping for the best. Right? Let's be honest here. So I will have a link to this in the description. It's just, if you go on Reddit and look up Equifax security breach, it's under the personal finance subreddit. It seems to be stickied, so it'll be right at the top when you go there. It just says what you should do to remain vigilant. It's just a few steps, and to make sure that you don't become a victim of identity theft. Because losing your social security number is the UK equivalent of losing your national insurance number. Well, not losing, sorry, having someone steal it. And it is a very, very major deal. And it is an absolute pain if you do end up in a serious situation. So get this handled ASAP.
Yeah. And also get it handled, because if you're in America, there is a nice class action lawsuit being prepared for you to join if you are affected.
Just join in.
Yeah, it's actually meant to cost them up to like $70 billion dollars. Considering Equifax as a company is only worth around 6 or 7, that's by their entire worth of like including all their assets and stuff.
Oopsie daisies. I think they done goofed on that one.
Slight slip up. Just
You know what? Let's cover this last topic. Purely because I reckon we can do it in like 5 minutes. And I don't mean the headphone jack one, luckily for you, Paul. I mean the Tesla one.
Like I enjoyed that video.
Did you enjoy it? You know what? Screw it. Let's do both. I reckon we have time. Why not? So first up, let's discuss the Tesla one though. So Hurricane Irma. Is it Irma?
Yep.
I believe it's Irma.
Yep.
Oops. So Hurricane Irma has actually now made landfall. It's worth pointing out. However, if you were within the path of Hurricane Irma and you owned a Tesla Model S 60D, which used to be, I should say, their lowest budget version. It was the cheapest one. Um, they were nice enough. Tesla was nice enough to issue a temporary update. This temporary update extended the range of the Tesla cars by about 30 miles. It's a temporary update. It is only applicable. It is thought to be reverting on the 14th of September. This is a software update that usually costs $5,000, but that extra 30 miles is crucial because even if it only saves one life, it's still a major deal, and you are getting, 30, 40 miles is still extremely useful for getting out of the hurricane path as such.
I think that because some people have said about why is it a thing that they can just simply flick a switch and suddenly they've got the extra 30 miles, but I think Tesla have done a real good thing here. But I think we knew before that Tesla, they had the extra battery in the cars. It's just if you paid for the extra, then you could make use of the extra. So for Tesla to actually make more people realize that that's a thing, so not actually really saving themselves too much in some people's eyes, to do that for people is really good, because they actually responded to how it all came about. For those that don't know, someone actually asked Tesla if they could do this for him because he literally needed about 30 miles more to get out of the path without having to worry too much about stopping to top up. And how quickly the area reacted, agreed to do it, and then agreed to do it to other people's cars as well. I think good guys, Tesla. That's sort of some of the dodgy things or some of the questionable news stories that have come out of Tesla in the past few weeks. I think that's kind of evened it up for them.
And I just want to point out that Elon Musk in general is rapid on his Twitter. I'm not sure if you've ever noticed. Like, the moment anyone mentions Elon Musk, he is on that, like, straight away. Which is always great. But the manufacturing process, just in case you weren't aware, is that there is a 60 kilowatt hour version, or was a 60 kilowatt hour version, and a 75 kilowatt hour version. They were actually functionally the same car. They were literally identical, except there was a software cap on the 60 kilowatt version that just meant that it didn't use the full battery, which actually, although isn't great for short-term range, is great for long-term range because it means that the batteries will die short, like they won't die as fast.
I did actually think that it's almost a good thing at times.
If you want your car to last really long, it's actually better.
Still prefer the 100D.
Yeah, of course, everyone would, right? I believe there's a 110 now, isn't there?
I think so. Yeah, but I know it was the P100D with the ludicrous speed upgrade. Oh, I just want a self-driving car, to be honest.
Who doesn't? Right, let's be real here.
People that don't trust self-driving cars.
And those people I don't trust.
Yep.
That is I'm just gonna go out there and I'm gonna say it. You know what? If you don't trust self-driving cars, I don't trust you.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't trust,
you don't have to trust them right now. You don't have to trust them like right this second. But the moment they are better than humans, if you don't trust them at that point, that is when I don't trust you.
They're gonna take over the world.
And I am A-okay with that.
As long as it's not Apple that takes over the world, I'd rather Google, Amazon, or Tesla. To me, them three could just join up together. That Google can make do the hardware for the robots. Tesla can help them make sure the robots can get around by themselves with their autonomous software, and Amazon can sell us the robots, and I'm fine with that.
Sounds like a deal. You hear that, guys? Go do it. Yep. Make it happen.
Guys, Snappy-Tech are happy to broker the deal as well.
Yes, absolutely. We will broker it for the low price of 10% of all of your net worths combined.
So, yeah, a few billion. at underestimation, really.
Yeah, yeah. Right, last piece of news. Let's cover this, and this will be the first episode in a while where we've talked about every single topic on the show notes. So let's talk about this. Let's do this real quick.
So
you can
is...
introduce this because
Yeah.
you watched it. I watched it like 2 days ago, whereas you watched it like half an hour before the show. So tell me your opinions. Go.
Also, well, for one, I find it's weird that having just a YouTube video rather than an actual article link to go to. But basically, if people haven't seen, there was this guy who actually made his own iPhone from scratch, didn't he?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that video.
Have you not?
But I know it's the same guy. No, I haven't.
You're missing out.
But
it is top notch.
Yeah. But he decided the other week that he wanted, or a little while back, that he wanted an iPhone 7. But after buying it, he quickly started to miss the headphone jack and wondered whether he could build a headphone jack into it himself. People said, no, there is no way this could be done. Of course, people used to troll all these people on the internet saying, oh, if you just drill through where it used to be, then the headphone jack's still there. And of course, loads of people broke their phone.
Which was hilarious.
Let's face it, it was all their fault.
Yeah, that was funny as hell.
Bloody great. Yeah, I love that. I felt sorry for some people that.
Oh, I didn't. I just laughed.
There was like 1% of people that I felt sorry for. But yeah, I know, I thought it was absolutely freaking great. But so, and the thing is, he actually, rather than just drilling the hole that most people thought, he actually went about it electrically. Something most people wouldn't understand how to do. He started off with quite like a version that was even bigger than the phone and more untidy, just sort of as a proof of concept. And by the end of the video, he actually managed to get a circuit board in there, the folding circuit board, to actually make it work. I didn't watch the last 5 minutes properly, but I know he did it, so there might be some caveats that I didn't see. But
there is one caveat. It is the only caveat, unfortunately, which is
it's an iPhone.
Well, actually, yeah. Okay, there are two caveats. With it being that you can't actually use the headphone jack and charge the phone at the same time.
Yeah,
that
was the thing. Because that was the thing he was actually having to argue, or the compromise he needed to make, so to say, because he realised that the way it currently works, there is nowhere to connect it apart from the lightning jack. So to be able to use the headphone jack, you needed to bypass the lightning jack. And though he could switch between the two, he couldn't have both at the same time, which is slightly annoying. It would be interesting to see whether there is actually a way of whether he could actually do both. But I don't think a person doing it on his own with the help of random Chinese companies is going to be able to do what Apple would have needed to do themselves to pass data and power through the same.
I just want to point out, though, real quick, that the title I gave this in the show notes is just so hilarious, in my opinion. In the sense that one man did what Apple couldn't and put a headphone jack in the iPhone 7 because Apple claimed there was zero space. And then this one guy comes along and is like, well, actually...
Yeah, I know it's not a perfect solution, but if you wanted to build it in there, you could have built it in there because they would have built the whole phone to make sure that was incorporated. And let's face it, a guy that is probably worth tens of thousands of dollars cannot beat a company that's worth hundreds of billions of dollars when it comes to designing a phone. But it really does sort of show like Apple, why did you take this out? Well, it's obvious it can be done. He found the space pretty easily. He did have to take a sensor out. I think originally, I don't know whether he put it back in, but he's going to show that it's not that. Well, why did you bother with Apple? Just a leap ahead that they didn't need to do.
And it was just it's thought that, and I think we discussed this in the first podcast, and if we didn't, then I know that I definitely mentioned it in the video. It's thought that the reason they took out the headphone jack isn't because they had to for the iPhone 7, it's because they had to for the iPhone X or the iPhone Edition or whatever it's going to be called when that comes out next week. I should mention that event is on the 14th, if I recall correctly.
12th,
Um,
Tuesday.
You're probably right. Yeah,
I looked
Tuesday.
at this earlier on, so
Yeah, 12 at 10 a.m. PDT. It's in 2 days, right? And it's thought that that phone didn't have the space for a headphone jack, so they got rid of it on the iPhone 7, with the idea being that everyone would be outraged then, instead of outraged when they did it on the iPhone Edition, and then that would have affected sales. But I'm still, like, even today, right? I've mentioned this on Twitter as well. The only thing stopping me from buying a Pixel 2 is that if it doesn't have a headphone jack. And I also mentioned this on the last podcast we did 2 weeks ago. And I also mentioned it with Greg 3 weeks ago. That is the only thing stopping me from buying a Pixel 2. It's the potential. It's more than likely at this point. But that lack of a headphone jack is the only thing stopping me from picking up a Pixel 2.
And let's face it, I think it's more of a Google just trying to, I'd like to say play catch up, but it's more of a case of Google just doing what Apple's done. Because let's face it, does anyone want the headphone jack gone? Yeah, a lot of us are starting to use Bluetooth headphones, which is great. But Google don't sell Bluetooth headphones, so they're not making money out of it. Amazon might be making money out of that idea, but do Google need to take it out? No, I certainly can't agree with anyone taking headphone jack out at the moment.
Yeah, it's not necessary. Like,
give it 5 years, and I'd probably agree that it's a suitable thing to do. Not now.
It's not even that. It's that, the big thing for me was, and they really did this with a MacBook, right, where they got rid of all of the ports apart from USB-C. Right. The big thing for me is
headphone jack. Stupid enough.
Yeah, and a headphone jack.
They could have fit no more than one USB-C port, but they could fit a headphone jack.
Huh, interesting. But the big thing for me there is that it wasn't that they had to remove everything else, right? They could have put in one USB-A port, right? Like, it wouldn't have killed them to put in one standard USB port. But they chose not to, and that's what annoys me more, right? Most companies can choose to put a headphone jack in, right? But they're choosing not to.
Yeah, I just think it's one, it's a choice that they shouldn't make, but it just annoys me that Apple can do these things over and over again, where they choose not to do something that everyone's like, why on earth have you done this? There is usually no reason why they shouldn't do something, and because they're Apple, people still buy it anyway, and they eventually it ends up being fine-ish because they're Apple. That really frustrates me.
It is worth mentioning, if you do want a Google Pixel with a headphone jack, a Pixel 2 I should say, the Moto X4 is expected to be that. The Android One edition of the Moto X4 specifically is expected to feature a headphone jack, and it will be rocking Android One, which is Google's like super efficient Android. So Motorola, or Lenovo in this case, don't get the opportunity to put all of their stuff on top. It rocks pure Android, and it means that all of the updates arrive at the same time. So you get that sort of Google Pixel style next day update, whilst also having a headphone jack, which sounds good to me. And it's also worth mentioning that the Moto X4 isn't a shoddy device. It's not great as far as I'm concerned, but it's not bad, right? It's got a 5.2-inch 1080p screen with massive top and bottom bezels. I say massive, I feel like the S8 and the G6 and all that has sort of skewed the way we look at it, because I look at my S7 Edge and go, oh my god, those top and bottom bezels are so huge. But they're not, right? 3 GB of RAM, Snapdragon 630, 3000 milliamp hour battery. It's a decent phone. It's relatively cheap. It's going to be a few $100, I believe. Is there a price here somewhere? There should be.
I mean, the top and bottom bezels aren't bad. It's just compared to like S8 and stuff. The really expensive phones making all the other phones look shit, really.
Yeah, and it was, because if you looked at it last year, a S8 would look exactly the same as a Honor 5C, for example. And one cost £700 and the other one cost 150. Whereas
What about an iPhone 5C?
Whereas now they've really gone for shrinking the bezels, and that kind of tells you how much a phone costs. You can kind of, it's not perfect, but you can kind of tell if it's a cheaper phone because of the bigger bezels.
Yeah, you're paying an extra £300 for an extra, or for about 3 millimeters less bezel on the side, and a bit more than that on the tops.
Basically, yeah. Anyway, that is. I think we're going to call it a show there. We've ran for a while. Let me get the exact time. Over an hour and 20 minutes. So go us.
Yeah, bad.
The stamina of an animal with a lot of stamina. I don't know. So if you want to check Paul out, please go do that. He is smpy.tech/Paul. Link in the description. He is here so often that he gets his own Snappy-Tech link. Go, Paul. I'd give you a high five, but you're through the internet and I'd end up hitting the webcam.
Hey.
So yeah, go check that out. If you want to come join us, we are live every Sunday, believe it or not, apart from last week because I was busy dying. Apart from that, we're live every Sunday, 8 p.m. British summertime. You can come join us in the live chat and interact, and we'll chat with you, as well as just being able to come see us talking live and following along with the show notes, which is always in the description. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to get all the podcasts and any videos we do that aren't podcasts. Go to smpy.tech/podcast for the audio version or /iTunes if you rock an iOS device or a Mac to get it on iTunes podcasts. Go subscribe, go listen to it every week. We're here, we're talking tech news, and we will see you guys next week, I guess. Or will you? Yeah, you will. See you guys then.